The flames danced against the night sky, consuming everything Zara Vaughn had worked for over the past 3 years. Her dress shop, once the pride of Ash Fork, Arizona, now reduced to smoldering timbers and ash. She fell to her knees in the dirt, her hands trembling as they covered her face, unable to look away from the destruction that the Blackwell Gang had wrought upon her livelihood out of pure spite. "Miss Vaughn." The voice came from behind her, quiet but steady. Zara turned to find Ethan Forrester standing there, his tall frame silhouetted against the backdrop of the fire. His cowboy hat was clutched in his hands, revealing sandy brown hair that caught the orange glow of the flames. She'd seen him around town, knew he worked at the Hallbrook Ranch outside Ash Fork, but they'd never exchanged more than pleasantries. "Mr. Forrester," she managed, her voice hoarse from screaming for help when the Outlaws had first set the blaze. "I'm afraid I'm in no state for company." Ethan took a step forward, his boots crunching on the scattered debris. "I saw what happened. The whole town did." His eyes, a clear blue even in the dim light, held a determined look. "Those bastards, pardon my language, they've been terrorizing folks all across the territory." Zara nodded, too numb to speak. The Blackwell Gang had demanded protection money from all the businesses in Ash Fork. She had refused. This was their answer. "Miss Vaughn," Ethan said, kneeling beside her in the dirt, seemingly unconcerned about his worn denim pants. He reached into his coat and pulled out a leather pouch that jingled with the unmistakable sound of coins. "I want you to have this." "What is it?" she asked, though she could guess. "My savings. $837. Been putting it away for 3 years now." He placed the heavy pouch in her hands. "It's yours." Zara stared at him, bewildered. "Mr. Forrester, I can't possibly start again," he interrupted, his voice growing firmer. "Start again with me." "With you?" The words came out as barely a whisper. "I've admired your grit since you came to town, the way you built that shop from nothing." His eyes reflected the dying embers of her store. "I know what it's like to lose everything and have to rebuild. I want to help you. We can do it together." Zara looked from the pouch of money to the earnest face of the cowboy before her. She hardly knew this man, and yet here he was, offering her his entire savings and something else she couldn't quite define. "Why would you do this?" she asked. "Because sometimes a person needs to stand for something bigger than themselves," Ethan replied, standing and extending his hand to help her up. "The Blackwells think they've broken you. I aim to prove them wrong." As Zara took his hand and rose to her feet, she felt something stir within her chest, a tiny spark where moments ago there had been only despair. She didn't know what would come of this strange offer, but standing amid the ruins of her old life, she found herself willing to find out. "All right, Mr. Forrester," she said, straightening her soot-stained dress. "Show me how we start again." The year was 1884, and for Zara Vaughn and Ethan Forrester, life in the Arizona territory was about to change in ways neither could have imagined. Zara spent the night at Mrs. Holloway's boarding house, one of the few places in Ash Fork that offered rooms to respectable single women. She barely slept, her mind whirring with thoughts of her destroyed shop and Ethan Forrester's unexpected proposition. By morning, her grief had hardened into resolve. She dressed in one of the 2 remaining dresses. She owned the other had been on her body during the fire, and went downstairs to find Ethan waiting in the modest parlor, hat in hand. "Morning, Miss Vaughn," he said, standing as she entered. "I hope you managed some rest." "Little enough," she admitted, noting how different he looked in the daylight. Cleaner, more composed than the dust-covered cowboy from the night before, though his clothes were simple and well-worn. "I've been thinking about your offer, and I appreciate your kindness truly. But I can't take your money without knowing more about what you're proposing." Zara sat on the settee opposite him, hands folded in her lap. What exactly did you mean by start again with me? Ethan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I've been saving to buy a piece of land just outside town. There's a small house on it already, nothing fancy but it's sturdy. I was thinking we could fix it up, add on to it. He paused. One side could be your new dress shop, better than before. Zara studied him. And what do you get out of this arrangement, Mr. Forrester? A partner, he said simply. Someone to share the burden and the rewards, and maybe, he hesitated, maybe a chance to know you better. The directness of his words caught her off guard. Mr. Forrester, Ethan, he corrected. If we're to be partners, seems right we use our given names. Ethan, she repeated, testing the name. I'm 26 years old. I've been on my own since I was 19. I came to Arizona to build something that was mine alone. She met his gaze steadily. I'm not looking for a husband, if that's what you're suggesting. To her surprise, he smiled. I'm not proposing marriage, Miss Vaughn. Just a business arrangement between equals with the possibility of friendship. Maybe more someday if that's where things lead naturally. He straightened. I'm 29 myself. Been on my own since 16. I understand the value of independence. Zara considered his words. And the Blackwells. They'll come back, you know. They don't take kindly to being defied. Something hardened in Ethan's expression. I know their kind all too well, but I also know that standing together gives us a better chance than standing alone. You sound like you have experience with outlaws. Some, he admitted, though offered no further explanation. So what do you say? Partners? Zara took a deep breath. The logical part of her brain told her this was madness, trusting a virtual stranger with her future. But the alternative was leaving Ash Fork defeated, with nothing but the clothes on her back and the bitter taste of failure. I'll need to see this property first, she said finally. Ethan's face broke into a genuine smile that transformed his features. I've got horses waiting outside. We can ride out there now, if you're amenable. An hour later, they crested a small rise about 2 miles outside Ash Fork. Below them sat a modest house with a small barn beside it. The place needed work, the roof had a noticeable sag, and the porch was missing several boards, but Zara could see the potential. More importantly, she could envision the small addition that might become her new shop. The previous owner was a widow who moved east to live with her daughter, Ethan explained as they dismounted. Land's been vacant for almost a year. 20 acres, good water from the well, and far enough from town to avoid unwanted attention but close enough for customers to reach you easily. It's more remote than I'm used to, Zara observed, walking toward the house. Safer that way, Ethan said, following. Blackwells tend to stick to town, where there's easy pickings and quick escape routes. Inside, the house was simple but sound: 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a main room. Dust covered every surface, and a family of mice had clearly taken up residence in one corner, but the structure itself seemed solid. I'd live in the barn until we got the place fixed up, Ethan clarified quickly, noting her examination of the bedrooms. Your reputation would be preserved. Zara couldn't help but smile at his concern for propriety. Mr. Forrester, Ethan, I appreciate the thought, but if we're to be business partners, we'll need to move beyond such niceties. She ran a finger along a dusty windowsill. Besides, this place needs a great deal of work before anyone could live in it comfortably. I'm handy with tools, he offered, and I know some men from the ranch who'd help for fair wages. Zara walked the perimeter of the main room, her mind already calculating dimensions: light for sewing, space for customers. I saved some patterns and a few special fabrics in a trunk at Mrs. Holloway's, she said, thinking aloud. I could restart with those. But I'll need more supplies, fabric, a new sewing machine. The money would cover it, Ethan said. "And I've still got my job at the ranch until we get this place going." Zara turned to face him. "Why me, Ethan? Why my shop? There are other businesses in Ash Fork the Blackwells have threatened." He was quiet for a moment, as if weighing how much to say. "My mother was a seamstress," he finally replied. "Raised me and my sister on the money she made with her needle. When she died, we lost everything because she had no partner, no one to help carry on." His eyes met hers. "When I saw your shop burning, it brought it all back. I couldn't stand by and watch history repeat itself." The simple honesty of his answer moved her more than any grand declaration could have. "And your sister, where is she now?" A shadow passed over his face. "Gone. Consumption took her 5 years ago." "I'm sorry," Zara said softly. He nodded in acknowledgement, then seemed to shake off the memories. "So what do you think? Is this something you could see becoming home, becoming your new start?" Zara looked around once more, allowing herself to imagine the possibilities. It wouldn't be easy. It would mean long days of hard work, tight finances, and the uncertainty of a new business venture with a man she barely knew. But standing in that dusty, abandoned house, she felt something she hadn't since she'd first opened her dress shop. Hope. "Yes," she said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. "Yes, I believe it is." The transformation of the old widow's house began the very next day. True to his word, Ethan brought 3 men from the Hallbrook Ranch to help with the heavy work. Zara was impressed with how quickly things progressed under Ethan's direction. The man clearly knew his way around construction. "Where did you learn all this?" she asked on the 3rd day, as she watched him replace rotted boards on the porch with practiced efficiency. Ethan paused, wiping sweat from his brow with his sleeve. "My pa was a carpenter before he took to ranching, taught me the basics before he passed." "You've lost a lot of people," Zara observed. He shrugged, returning to his work. "Most folks out here have. Life's hard in the territories." He glanced up at her. "What about you? Any family back east?" Zara shook her head, picking up a broom to sweep away the sawdust. "My parents died in a ferry accident when I was 18. I had an aunt who took me in, but we never got along. When I turned 19, I took what little inheritance I had and headed west. Brave decision for a young woman alone. Necessary decision," she corrected. "My aunt had plans to marry me off to a man 3 times my age with hands that wandered where they shouldn't." Ethan's hammer paused mid-swing. "Sounds like your aunt deserved a meeting with this hammer." The comment startled a laugh out of Zara. "Perhaps, but I chose to forge my own path instead." She swept the last of the debris off the edge of the porch. "I worked as a seamstress in 3 different towns before I saved enough to open my own shop in Ash Fork." "And now you're starting over again," Ethan said, his tone sympathetic. "With better company this time," Zara replied, surprising herself with the warmth in her voice. Over the next 2 weeks, they fell into a comfortable routine. Ethan would work at the ranch from dawn until early afternoon, then spend the rest of the daylight hours at the house. Zara divided her time between helping with the renovations and traveling to nearby towns to purchase supplies for her new dress shop. As the days passed, Zara found herself looking forward to the afternoons when they would work side by side. Ethan was easy company, respectful but not distant, helpful but never controlling. He listened when she spoke about her ideas for the business and offered suggestions only when asked. By the end of the 2nd week, the main house was livable, though far from finished. The roof had been repaired, the floors scrubbed clean, and the windows washed to let in the Arizona sunlight. They had begun framing the addition that would become Zara's shop, a light-filled space adjoining the main house, but with its own entrance for customers. "We should celebrate our progress," Ethan suggested one evening as they sat on the newly repaired porch, watching the sunset paint the desert landscape in shades of gold and crimson. Zara looked up from the fabric samples she'd been sorting. "What did you have in mind?" "The Founders' Day dance is tomorrow night in town. Thought it might be nice to go, show folks that neither of us is beaten." He hesitated. "That is, if you'd care to accompany me." The invitation caught Zara by surprise. They'd been working together for weeks, but this was the first suggestion of anything that might be construed as social rather than practical. "A dance," she repeated. "Just as friends," Ethan added quickly. "Or partners. However you want to see it." Zara considered the offer. She hadn't been to a social event since before the fire, too consumed with rebuilding to think about such things. But perhaps Ethan was right. Making an appearance would send a message to the town, and to the Blackwells, that she wasn't cowed. "I'd like that," she decided. "Though I have precious little to wear for such an occasion." Ethan smiled. "Seems to me a dressmaker might be able to fashion something suitable, even on short notice." Zara laughed. "Are you challenging my professional skills, Mr. Forrester? Wouldn't dream of it, Miss Vaughn." His eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled, she noticed. "Just expressing my complete confidence in your abilities." The next evening found them approaching the town hall, where lanterns hung from every available post, and the sound of fiddle music spilled into the street. Zara had indeed managed to create a new dress for the occasion, a simple but elegant creation in deep blue cotton, trimmed with some of the lace she'd salvaged from her shop. Ethan, for his part, had cleaned up remarkably well. His usual work clothes had been replaced by a pressed shirt, clean trousers, and a vest that looked new. His face was freshly shaven, revealing a strong jawline usually hidden beneath stubble. "You look very handsome," Zara said as he helped her down from the wagon. "And you're the most beautiful woman in the territory," he replied with such sincerity that Zara felt a blush rise to her cheeks. The dance was already in full swing when they entered. Couples twirled around the floor while others chatted in groups along the edges of the room. Zara felt eyes turn toward them as they entered, some curious, some sympathetic, a few hostile. "Ignore them," Ethan murmured, his hand settling lightly at the small of her back. "Tonight is for enjoyment." They had barely reached the refreshment table when Mayor Hollies approached, his round face beaming. "Miss Vaughn, Mr. Forrester, so pleased to see you both here tonight." He lowered his voice. "Terrible business with your shop, Miss Vaughn, just terrible. If there's anything the town council can do." "Thank you, Mayor," Zara replied, "but Mr. Forrester and I have matters well in hand. In fact, we'll be opening a new dress shop just outside town within the month." The mayor's eyebrows rose. "Is that so? Well, that's wonderful news." He glanced between them. "The two of you are in business together, then?" "We are," Ethan confirmed, his tone leaving no room for the speculation Zara could see forming behind the mayor's eyes. "Equal partners." "How?" "Progressive," the mayor commented, then quickly changed the subject. "Well, do enjoy the festivities. The ladies of the auxiliary have outdone themselves with the refreshments this year." As the mayor moved on to greet other guests, Zara turned to Ethan. "I suspect we'll be the subject of gossip before the night is over." "Let them talk," Ethan said, offering her a cup of punch. Nothing improper about two business partners attending a community event. Despite the initial awkwardness, Zara found herself enjoying the evening. Ethan proved to be an excellent dancer, guiding her confidently through waltzes and reels. Several of her former customers sought her out to express their sympathy about the shop and excitement about her new venture. It was during a brief rest between dances that Zara noticed three men enter the hall, rough-looking individuals whose appearance immediately silenced the conversations nearby. She recognized the one in front immediately. Victor Blackwell, leader of the gang that had burned her shop. Ethan's hand tightened on hers. "Stay here," he said quietly. Ethan, no, but he was already moving toward the newcomers, his posture tense but controlled. Zara followed, unwilling to let him face the outlaws alone. She reached his side just as he stopped a few feet from Blackwell. "This is a private event," Ethan said, his voice carrying in the suddenly quiet room. "You're not welcome here." Victor Blackwell, a tall man with a pockmarked face and cold eyes, smirked. "Free country, cowboy. We got as much right to be here as anybody." His gaze shifted to Zara, and his smile widened unpleasantly. "Well, if it ain't the dressmaker. Heard you lost your place of business. Terrible shame." Zara lifted her chin. "Nothing I can't rebuild, Mr. Blackwell." "Is that so?" Blackwell's eyes flicked between her and Ethan. "With help from your new friend, I take it. Mighty generous of him." He stepped closer, his breath reeking of whiskey and tobacco. But generosity only goes so far. Fire's an unpredictable thing. Has a way of returning when folks don't learn their lesson the first time. Ethan moved slightly, positioning himself between Zara and Blackwell. "That sounds like a threat." "Just an observation," Blackwell replied, his hand drifting toward the gun at his hip. "Fires, accidents, all sorts of misfortunes can befall people who don't understand how things work in these parts." The tension in the room was palpable. From the corner of her eye, Zara saw Sheriff Taylor moving slowly toward them, hand on his holster. "I understand perfectly how things work," Ethan said, his voice deadly calm. "I understand that men like you prey on decent folks until someone stands up to you. Consider this me standing." Blackwell laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "You've got grit, cowboy." "But grit don't stop bullets." "Neither does cowardice," Zara interjected, stepping forward to stand beside Ethan. "Burning a woman's business in the night while she sleeps. Is that the act of a man worth fearing, Mr. Blackwell?" The outlaw's face darkened. "You'd best mind that tongue, woman, or what?" Sheriff Taylor's voice cut through the tension as he finally reached them. "You making threats at a community dance, Blackwell, that's not very sociable." Blackwell's eyes narrowed, but he forced a smile. "No threats, Sheriff. Just catching up with old friends. Miss Vaughn and Mr. Forrester don't look much like they consider you a friend," the sheriff observed dryly. "Now, I'm going to suggest you and your boys find entertainment elsewhere tonight. This here's a peaceful gathering." For a moment it seemed Blackwell might challenge the sheriff. Then he shrugged. "Party's dull anyway." He glanced back at Zara and Ethan. "We'll be seeing each other again real soon, count on it." With that, he and his companions turned and sauntered out of the hall. The tension in the room gradually dissipated as conversations resumed, and the musicians hesitantly began playing again. Sheriff Taylor turned to Zara and Ethan. "You two all right?" Ethan nodded. "Fine, Sheriff. Appreciate the intervention. Don't appreciate it too much." "Blackwell meant what he said about seeing you again." The sheriff lowered his voice. "Word is he's taken your defiance personal, Miss Vaughn, and now you too, Forrester, might be wise to keep your heads down for a spell." "We're not hiding," Zara said firmly. "We're building something new right outside town," the sheriff sighed. "Then at least keep your eyes open and a shotgun handy. Blackwell's not one to let go of a grudge." After he walked away, Ethan turned to Zara. "Maybe we should head back. The mood's somewhat spoiled." Zara looked around at the dancers who had returned to their merriment, though many cast concerned glances their way. "No," she decided. "If we leave now, Blackwell wins. We came to celebrate our progress and show this town we won't be intimidated." She held out her hand. "I believe this is our dance, Mr. Forrester." A slow smile spread across Ethan's face as he took her hand. "As you wish, Miss Vaughn." As he led her onto the dance floor, Zara was acutely aware of his hand at her waist, the solid strength of his shoulder beneath her palm, the way he guided her with confident steps. Despite the confrontation with Blackwell, or perhaps because of it, she felt drawn to Ethan in a way that went beyond their business arrangement. Later that night, as they drove back to the property under a canopy of stars, Zara broke the comfortable silence. "Thank you for standing with me tonight." Ethan glanced at her, his face half illuminated by moonlight. "Always will, Zara. That's what partners do." "Is that all we are?" The words slipped out before she could stop them. The wagon slowed as Ethan's hands tightened on the reins. "What are you asking exactly?" Zara took a deep breath. "I'm asking if your interest in me is purely business, or if there's something more to it." Ethan was quiet for so long that Zara began to regret her boldness. Then, finally, he spoke. "From the moment I saw you standing up to those town council members who wanted to dictate where you could open your shop, I knew you were someone special." He kept his eyes on the road ahead. "My offer to be business partners was honest. But yes, Zara, there's something more, at least on my side." The admission hung in the air between them, both thrilling and terrifying in its implications. Zara had not allowed herself to consider romance since arriving in Arizona, too focused on building her independence to entertain the possibility. "I don't know what to say," she admitted. "You don't have to say anything," Ethan assured her. "Nothing has to change. I'm content with things as they are, if that's what you want." But as they continued their journey home beneath the vast Arizona sky, Zara wasn't entirely sure what she wanted anymore. The next morning, neither of them mentioned their conversation from the night before. Instead, they threw themselves into work with renewed vigor, as if physical labor could somehow dispel the tension that now hummed between them. Ethan had taken the day off from the ranch to focus on completing the frame for the shop addition. By midday, the skeleton of walls stood proudly attached to the main house, giving Zara her first real vision of what her new business would look like. "It's going to be perfect," she said, standing in what would eventually be the center of her shop. "Better than the old place, actually. More light, more space for customers." Ethan nodded, hammering the last nail into a support beam. "We'll get the roof on within the week, then start on the interior. Should be ready for business before the first fall chill hits." Zara studied him as he worked, noting the careful precision of his movements, the way his brow furrowed in concentration. She'd been so focused on the practical aspects of their partnership that she'd failed to truly see the man himself. "Ethan," she began, uncertain how to breach the subject that had kept her awake most of the night. "About what you said last night," a cloud of dust in the distance interrupted her. They both turned to see a rider approaching at speed, the horse pushing hard across the desert terrain. "Stay here," Ethan said, reaching for the rifle that never strayed far from his side these days. He stepped out onto the porch, weapon ready but not raised. As the rider drew closer, Zara recognized young Tommy Miller, the stable boy from town. He reined his horse to a halt in front of the house, the animal's flanks heaving with exertion. "Mr. Forrester, Miss Vaughn," the boy called, his face flushed with urgency. "Sheriff Taylor sent me." "The Blackwells are headed this way." Ethan's expression hardened. "How many?" "4 of them, including Victor," Tommy replied, glancing nervously over his shoulder. "Sheriff's gathering men to follow, but they got a head start. Said to warn you they were talking about burning you out again." Zara felt her blood run cold. Not again, not when they'd already come so far. Ethan turned to her, his eyes intense. "Zara, take the wagon and go with Tommy back to town. I'll stay and defend the property." "Absolutely not," she retorted. "I'm not running this time, Ethan. This is my home too." "Zara, please, no," she cut him off firmly. Last time I wasn't prepared, this time I am. She marched back into the house, returning moments later with the shotgun Ethan had insisted on teaching her to use. We stand together or not at all. For a second, it looked like Ethan might argue. Then his expression shifted to one of grudging admiration. All right, but you stay inside, use the windows for cover. He turned to Tommy. Ride back, tell the sheriff we're making a stand here, and hurry. As the boy galloped away, Ethan quickly surveyed their defenses. The house had good sightlines in all directions, but the partially constructed shop addition was vulnerable. He moved barrels, lumber, and tools to create makeshift barriers, working with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before. "You fought outlaws before," Zara observed, helping to barricade the front door. Ethan paused. "Yes." "Care to elaborate?" he sighed, checking the ammunition in his rifle. "My father didn't die naturally. Outlaws raided our ranch when I was 16. They killed him and took everything of value." His voice was flat, emotionless. "I tracked them for 3 weeks, found them, made sure they never harmed another family." Zara stared at him, seeing a side of the gentle carpenter she'd never glimpsed before. "You killed them, 2 of them. The law got the others." He met her gaze directly. "I'm not proud of it, Zara, but I won't apologize for protecting what's mine." Before she could respond, the distant sound of hoofbeats reached them. Ethan moved to the window, peering carefully around the edge of the curtain. "They're coming." 4 men, just like Tommy said. His voice was calm, focused. "Get to the back bedroom. It has the best protection and clear shots at the approach." Zara hurried to position herself, heart pounding as she saw the riders drawing closer. Victor Blackwell was in the lead, a torch already lit in his hand. The sight of that flame sent a surge of rage through her. Not again. Never again. The riders pulled up about 50 yards from the house. Blackwell raised his voice to a shout. "Come on out, Forrester, you and the woman. Nobody needs to get hurt." "That's close enough, Blackwell," Ethan called back from his position at the front window. "This is private property. Turn around now," Blackwell laughed. "Private property, that's rich. This territory belongs to those strong enough to take it." He waved the torch. "Now, I'm feeling generous today. You 2 clear out, leave everything behind, and we'll let you live. Otherwise." He made a show of looking at the torch. "Not going to happen," Ethan replied. "Sheriff's already on his way with a posse. You start something here, you won't live to finish it." One of Blackwell's men leaned over to whisper something, looking nervously down the road they'd come on. Blackwell scowled and shook his head. "Last chance, Cowboy," he shouted, "or we burn it all down with you inside." The first shot came not from Ethan but from Zara. She fired the shotgun through the open window, the blast kicking up dirt near the horse's hooves. The animals reared in panic, nearly unseating 2 of the riders. "That's your answer," she shouted, pumping the shotgun for another round. The peaceful negotiation ended instantly. Blackwell and his men scattered, taking cover behind rocks and scrub brush. Gunfire erupted from both sides, bullets thudding into the wooden walls of the house. Zara ducked as a shot shattered the window above her, sending glass raining down. She heard Ethan returning fire from the front room, his shots measured and precise. "They're trying to circle around," Ethan called. "Watch the back door." Zara shifted position, moving to cover the rear of the house. Through a small window, she saw one of Blackwell's men attempting to sneak toward the back entrance. She waited until he was in range, then fired. The man cried out, clutching his leg, and scrambled back toward cover. The exchange of gunfire continued for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Zara reloaded the shotgun with trembling hands, acutely aware that their ammunition was limited. How long until the sheriff arrived? Could they hold out? A crash from the front of the house sent her running back to find Ethan. The partially finished wall of the shop addition had been hit by something burning. Blackwell had thrown the torch. Flames were already beginning to lick up the dry lumber. "We need to put it out," she cried, looking around frantically for water. "No time," Ethan grunted, firing again through the window. "They're making their move." Sure enough, using the distraction of the fire, Blackwell and his remaining men were charging toward the house, guns blazing. Zara raised her shotgun, took aim at the closest figure, and fired. The man went down with a scream. Ethan dropped another with a clean shot to the shoulder, but Blackwell and the fourth man reached the porch. The front door splintered under the impact of a boot. "Zara, run!" Ethan shouted, positioning himself between her and the door. "No." She stood her ground, shotgun raised as the door gave way. Victor Blackwell burst in, pistol raised, a manic gleam in his eyes. "Should have taken the offer, Forrester." What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Ethan fired, but his rifle clicked empty. Blackwell grinned, taking aim. Zara swung the shotgun toward him, but the fourth outlaw appeared in the doorway, his gun trained on her. 3 shots rang out in quick succession, but they came from outside the house. Blackwell jerked, a look of surprise crossing his face as a red stain bloomed on his chest. The fourth outlaw crumpled in the doorway. "Drop your weapons," Sheriff Taylor's voice boomed from outside. "The house is surrounded." Blackwell staggered, his pistol slipping from nerveless fingers. He looked down at the spreading blood on his shirt with an expression of disbelief. "Didn't think. You had it in you." "Cowboy," he wheezed, then collapsed to the floor. Silence fell, broken only by the crackling of flames from the shop addition. Ethan rushed to check Blackwell while Zara sagged against the wall, the adrenaline draining from her body. "He's alive, but barely," Ethan reported, applying pressure to the wound. "Sheriff, we need help in here." The next few hours passed in a blur. The sheriff and his men secured the scene while the town doctor was summoned to tend to the wounded, including Blackwell, who somehow clung to life despite his serious injury. Meanwhile, a bucket brigade formed to battle the fire consuming the shop addition. By sunset, the flames had been extinguished, but the damage was extensive. The entire framework of what would have been Zara's new shop was charred beyond salvage, and smoke damage had spread to part of the main house. Zara stood amid the wreckage, too numb to cry. Twice now, her dreams had gone up in flames. Twice now, the Blackwells had taken everything. She felt a presence beside her and knew without looking that it was Ethan. For a long moment, neither spoke, simply surveying the destruction together. "I'm sorry, Zara," Ethan finally said, his voice rough with emotion. "I promised to help you start again, and now—" "It's not your fault," she replied automatically, though her words sounded hollow even to her own ears. "We can rebuild," he insisted. "The house is still standing. The structure is sound. We'll clear away the damage and start fresh." Zara turned to look at him, really look at him. His face was streaked with soot, a cut above his eye still seeping blood where flying debris had struck him. But his eyes, those clear blue eyes, remained steadfast, determined. "Why?" she asked, the single word encompassing all her confusion and despair. "Why keep fighting, Ethan? The Blackwells nearly killed us today. They'll try again as soon as Victor recovers or his friends come looking for revenge." "They won't," Sheriff Taylor interjected, approaching from where he'd been conferring with his deputies. "Victor Blackwell just died of his wounds. The other 3 survivors are headed for Yuma prison if they survive the journey." He looked between them, his expression grave. "It's over. The Blackwell Gang is finished." The news should have brought relief, but Zara felt only a profound weariness. "It doesn't matter. Look at this place. We're back to where we started." "No," Ethan said firmly, taking her hands in his. "We're not where we started. We're alive." We stood our ground together, and we will rebuild again if we have to, and again after that if necessary." His grip tightened. Unless you want to leave. If this is too much, I understand. No one would blame you for walking away." The thought had crossed her mind. She could take what remained of Ethan's money, board a stagecoach, and try her luck in California or back east. Start yet again, somewhere far from the memories of fire and gunfire. But looking into Ethan's eyes, Zara realized she didn't want to start again, not alone anyway. Somewhere amid the chaos and danger, amid the shared labor and quiet evenings on the porch, she had come to care deeply for this man who had risked everything for her. "I'm not going anywhere," she said, squeezing his hands. "This is my home now, our home." Relief washed over Ethan's face, followed by something deeper, more profound. Without a word, he pulled her into his arms, holding her as if she might disappear if he let go. Zara returned the embrace, drawing strength from his solid presence. Over his shoulder, she surveyed the damaged property. It would take weeks, perhaps months, to rebuild. But for the first time since the flames had consumed her dress shop in town, Zara felt a sense of certainty about her future. Whatever came next, she would not face it alone. The days following the gunfight were filled with cleaning up and assessing damage. To Zara's relief, the main house had survived largely intact, requiring only minor repairs to reverse the smoke damage. The shop addition, however, would need to be completely rebuilt. Word of the confrontation with the Blackwell Gang spread quickly through Ash Fork and neighboring communities. To Zara's surprise, people began appearing at the property, offering help. Ranchers brought lumber, women arrived with food and linens, and even Mayor Hollies made an appearance, promising the town council would contribute to the rebuilding effort. Seems the Blackwells had more enemies than friends, Ethan observed one evening as they sat on the porch, watching the sun set over the newly cleared foundation where the shop would once again rise. Everyone's relieved someone finally stood up to them. At considerable cost, Zara noted, though without bitterness. She had made her peace with the destruction. "It will be weeks before we can open for business." "But we will open," Ethan assured her. He hesitated, then added, "There's something I've been meaning to show you, if you're not too tired." Curious, Zara followed him to the barn, where he lit a lantern and led her to a back corner. There, covered with a tarp, stood a large object she hadn't noticed before. Ethan pulled away the covering to reveal a sewing machine newer and more elaborate than the one she'd lost in the fire. "Ethan!" She gasped, running her fingers over the gleaming metal. "Where did this come from?" "Ordered it from Phoenix the day after we agreed to be partners," he explained, watching her reaction closely. "It arrived last week. I was saving it as a surprise for when the shop was finished, but—" He shrugged. "Thought you might need some good news now." Zara was speechless. The machine must have cost a significant portion of his savings, yet he'd purchased it without hesitation, without even telling her. "You didn't have to do this," she finally managed. "Wanted to," he replied simply. "I know how much your work means to you." Impulsively, Zara stepped forward and kissed his cheek. "Thank you, Ethan, for everything." The touch of her lips against his skin seemed to break something open between them. When Zara began to step back, Ethan gently caught her arm, keeping her close. "Zara," he said, his voice low and earnest in the lantern light, "I need to say something. These past weeks, working with you, standing beside you, they've been the best of my life. And it's not just because we're building something together, it's because of who you are." Zara's heart quickened. "And who am I? The strongest, most determined woman I've ever known." His hand moved to cup her cheek. "The woman I've fallen in love with." The declaration hung in the air between them, honest and unavoidable. Zara knew she should be cautious. They'd known each other such a short time, had faced nothing but crisis and hardship together. And yet she couldn't deny the way her heart lifted at his words, the sense of rightness she felt in his presence, the future she could envision with him at her side. "Ethan," she began, searching for the right words, "I care for you deeply. More than I expected to, more than I thought possible after everything that's happened. But love—" She hesitated. "Love is a big word." "Too big?" he asked, his expression vulnerable in a way she'd never seen before. "No," Zara replied, surprising herself with her certainty. "Not too big, just I need a little time, to be sure. To know that what I feel isn't just gratitude or the result of everything we've been through together." Ethan nodded, disappointment visible in his eyes but acceptance there too. "I understand. I'll wait, Zara, however long you need." He began to step away, but this time it was Zara who reached for him, her hand catching his. "That doesn't mean I want distance between us," she clarified. "Only time to let my heart catch up to where I suspect it's already heading." Hope returned to his expression. "And where might that be?" Instead of answering with words, Zara rose on her tiptoes and pressed her lips to his in a gentle, questioning kiss. Ethan responded with equal gentleness, his hands coming to rest lightly at her waist as if she were made of the finest china. When they parted, Zara saw in his eyes all the promises neither of them were quite ready to speak aloud, promises of partnership, of protection, of a future built with 4 hands instead of 2. "We should get back to the house," she said softly. "It's getting late." Ethan nodded, but before they left the barn, he covered the sewing machine carefully with the tarp once more. "Tomorrow," he said, "we'll find a place for this in the house. You can start working again, even before the shop is finished." "Our priorities should be finishing the repairs first," Zara protested. "Our priority," Ethan countered, "is making sure you can do what you love. The rest will follow." As summer gave way to early autumn, the property underwent a remarkable transformation. The damaged portion of the house was fully repaired, and the new shop addition rose steadily, larger and sturdier than before. Ethan had modified the design to include more windows for natural light and built-in shelving for fabric and supplies. True to his word, he had set up a temporary workspace for Zara in one corner of the main room, where her new sewing machine held pride of place. Word had spread that the dressmaker was back in business, albeit in limited capacity, and women from Ash Fork began making the journey to place orders or have alterations done. "Mrs. Peterson wants her daughter's wedding dress completed by Christmas," Zara reported one evening as she and Ethan shared a simple dinner. "And the Miller twins need new school dresses. I'm going to be quite busy." "Good busy," Ethan noted with satisfaction. He had finally left his position at the Holbrook Ranch to work full-time on their property, using his carpentry skills not just for the rebuild, but for crafting furniture for the house and fittings for the shop. Their days fell into a comfortable rhythm, working side by side during daylight hours, sharing quiet evenings on the porch or by the hearth as the nights grew cooler. Their relationship had deepened in small, meaningful ways, lingering touches as they passed tools to one another, stolen kisses when work paused for meals, long conversations under the stars. Zara had never known such contentment. The dress shop in town had been her achievement alone, a symbol of her independence. But this new venture, built with Ethan, represented something different yet equally valuable: partnership without loss of self. As October arrived, bringing with it the first crisp days of fall, Ethan announced that the shop addition was finally ready for occupancy. They spent a full day moving Zara's equipment and supplies into the new space, arranging everything according to her precise specifications. When they finished, Zara stood in the center of the room, turning slowly to take it all in. Large windows let in abundant light. The walls were painted a soft cream that would complement any fabric displayed against them, and the wooden counters and shelves Ethan had crafted gleamed with polish. "It's perfect," she breathed, overcome with emotion. "Better than I could have imagined." "There's one more thing," Ethan said, pulling something from his pocket. He handed her a small wooden plaque, beautifully carved. It read Vaughn and Forrester Fine Apparel. Zara traced the letters with her finger. "Both our names. Equal partners," Ethan reminded her with a smile, "if that's still what you want." "It is," she assured him, "though I was thinking." "Yes." Zara placed the plaque carefully on the counter before turning to face him. "Lately, I've been wondering if perhaps we should consider another type of partnership as well." Ethan went very still. "What kind of partnership would that be?" Gathering her courage, Zara took his hands in hers. "The permanent kind. The kind that involves a minister and vows." For a moment, Ethan simply stared at her, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his face, not the reserved smile she was accustomed to, but something radiant and unguarded. "Zara Vaughn," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "are you proposing marriage to me?" "I believe I am," she confirmed, suddenly nervous. "Unless you've changed your mind about loving me." In answer, Ethan pulled her into his arms and kissed her with such tenderness that tears sprang to Zara's eyes. When they parted, he rested his forehead against hers. "I love you more each day. Nothing would make me happier than to be your husband." "Then yes," Zara said, laughing through her tears, "we are officially engaged." They were married 2 weeks later in a simple ceremony at the property, with Sheriff Taylor officiating and half the town in attendance. Zara wore a dress of her own creation, ivory silk with delicate embroidery that had taken every spare moment to complete. Ethan, standing tall in a new suit, looked at her as if she were the most precious thing he'd ever beheld. "I never expected this," he confessed that night as they lay together in what was now their shared bedroom. "When I offered you my savings that night, I only knew I couldn't bear to see you defeated." Zara propped herself up on one elbow, studying his face in the moonlight streaming through the window. "And I never expected to find a partner who would value both my independence and my heart." She traced the line of his jaw with gentle fingers. "You said start again with me, and I thought you meant the business. I didn't realize you were offering me a whole new life." Ethan caught her hand and pressed a kiss to her palm. "A life we're building together. Every day, brick by brick. Or stitch by stitch," Zara added with a smile. As winter settled over Arizona territory, Vaughn and Forrester Fine Apparel flourished. Women came from as far as Prescott to have dresses made by the talented Mrs. Forrester, while Ethan's carpentry skills found an unexpected market in custom furniture and cabinetry. They expanded the barn to serve as his workshop, and by spring, both businesses were thriving beyond their expectations. They celebrated their first anniversary with a picnic beside the creek that ran through the far edge of their property. Zara had news to share, news that would change their lives once again. "Ethan," she said, watching him skip stones across the water's surface, "how would you feel about adding onto the house again?" He glanced back at her, eyebrows raised. "The shop getting too crowded already?" "Not the shop," she said, placing a hand over her still flat stomach. "But in about 7 months we're going to need another bedroom." Ethan froze mid-throw, the stones slipping from his fingers. "Zara, are you saying?" She nodded, her eyes shining. "We're going to have a baby." The joy that transformed his face was something Zara knew she would remember for the rest of her life. Ethan crossed the space between them in 3 long strides, dropping to his knees beside her on the blanket. "A baby," he repeated, voice filled with wonder as he placed his hand over hers. "Our baby." "Are you happy?" she asked, though his expression left little doubt. "Happy doesn't begin to cover it," he replied, gathering her into his arms. "I never thought I'd have a family again after losing everyone. You've given me back that hope, Zara. You've given me everything." Their son, James, was born the following autumn, a healthy, robust baby with his father's blue eyes and his mother's determined spirit. Zara took only a brief pause from her work, soon adapting to balancing motherhood with the demands of their growing business. Ethan built a cradle that could be moved between the house and shop, allowing James to be near his mother while she worked. As their second anniversary approached, Zara received an unexpected letter that would present them with a new opportunity and a decision. "It's from Mrs. Whitmore in San Francisco," she told Ethan over dinner after James had been put to bed. "She visited last month and ordered 3 dresses. Remember?" Ethan nodded, helping himself to more stew. "The banker's wife said she'd never seen such fine needlework." "Well, it seems she's done more than admire my work. She's told all her friends, and now she writes that several prominent San Francisco ladies are interested in my designs." Zara pushed the letter across the table. "She's offering to sponsor us if we want to open a shop there. Says her husband would provide financing." Ethan read the letter carefully, his expression thoughtful. "This is quite an opportunity. San Francisco is growing fast. You could become one of the premier dressmakers on the coast." Zara corrected. "It would be our business just as this is." "Of course," Ethan agreed, though something in his tone caught her attention. "You don't sound enthusiastic," she observed. Ethan set the letter down, considering his words. "It's not that I'm not proud of you. I am, immensely, and I want you to have every success." He gestured around them at the home they had built together. "But we've made something special here, Zara, not just the business but a life, a community. I'm not sure I'm ready to leave it behind." Zara reached across the table to take his hand. "Neither am I. You're not." Surprise colored his voice. "But this opportunity is flattering and tempting," she acknowledged. "But San Francisco isn't home. This is." She squeezed his hand. "When the Blackwells burned my first shop, I thought I'd lost everything. When they attacked this place, I almost gave up again. But you showed me that what matters isn't the building or the business, it's the people we love, the life we choose to build together." Relief washed over Ethan's face. "So you want to stay?" "I do," Zara confirmed. "But that doesn't mean we can't expand in other ways." Mrs. Whitmore's letter gave me an idea. "What if, instead of going to San Francisco, we bring a bit of San Francisco to us?" "I'm not following." "We could hire an assistant or 2, Zara explained, warming to her idea. "Train them in my techniques. I could create designs that they execute, while I focus on special commissions. We could even sell to shops in larger cities without having to move there ourselves." Ethan considered this. "You'd be expanding your business while staying rooted here." "Exactly. And with the railroad coming through next year, shipping will become much easier." Zara's eyes sparkled with excitement. "What do you think?" "I think," Ethan said, rising from his chair to pull her into an embrace, "that I married the smartest woman in the Arizona Territory." 3 years after the Blackwell Gang had burned Zara's first dress shop, Vaughn and Forrester Enterprises had grown beyond either of their initial visions. The dress shop now employed 4 seamstresses who worked under Zara's direction, creating garments that were shipped to boutiques in Phoenix, San Francisco, and even Denver. Ethan's carpentry business had expanded to include a small lumber mill that supplied finished wood to builders throughout the territory. Their property had grown as well. They had purchased adjacent land, built a larger house to accommodate their growing family. James had been joined by a sister, Clara, and constructed proper workshops for both their businesses. One evening, as they sat on the porch of their home watching their children play in the yard, Ethan turned to Zara with a reflective smile. "Do you ever think about that night?" he asked. "When we first met," Zara nodded, knowing exactly which night he meant. "Often. It was the worst and best night of my life, all at once. If I hadn't been in town that day," Ethan mused, "if I hadn't seen your shop burning, or if I'd accepted the Blackwell's demands for protection money," Zara added, "our paths might never have crossed," Ethan concluded. "Or at least, not in the same way." Zara leaned her head against his shoulder, watching as James carefully showed his little sister how to pet the family dog. "I used to believe that independence meant standing alone," she said softly, "that accepting help somehow diminished my achievements." "And now?" Ethan asked, his arm tightening around her waist. "Now I understand that the strongest foundations are built by many hands," Zara replied. "That true independence comes from knowing you have choices, including the choice to share your life with someone who respects your dreams as much as their own." Ethan pressed a kiss to her temple. "When I gave you my savings that night and said start again with me, I never imagined all this." He gestured to the thriving property around them. "I just knew I couldn't bear to see such spirit extinguished. And I never imagined that from such destruction could come so much joy," Zara said, turning to meet his gaze. "You gave me more than money that night, Ethan. You gave me a partner. A future. A love I never thought I'd find." As the sun set over the Arizona desert, painting the sky in the same fiery hues that had once consumed Zara's shop, she reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From the ashes of that first fire had risen something far more precious than any business, a family, a legacy, a love built to withstand whatever challenges life might bring. The Blackwells had tried to destroy her once, but in doing so, they had unwittingly led her to the man who would help her build something truly unbreakable. And for that, ironically, Zara would always be grateful. "Start again with me," Ethan had said that night, offering his life savings to a woman he barely knew. And together, they had done exactly that, not just starting again, but creating something entirely new, something neither could have achieved alone. A business, a family, a love that, like the desert plants surrounding their home, had not merely survived the fire, but had grown stronger because of it.